Hi, so as a follow-up to the class, I'm going to demonstrate how to make a custom UI. So I'm starting from a blank level. For clarity, I'm going to move everything to a new folder, just so that it's not in the way. Save, okay. So there's this device from Fortnite called the pop-up dialog device, which is pretty cool to show a UI that asks the player a question, and then the player can choose between different options, up to 6 different buttons that the player can press for different choices. So in this case, let's say, do you want an apple or a gun, for instance? And then we would give 2 buttons, 2 choices. I would not have a back button, just these 2 choices. One choice would be apple, the other choice would be gun. And I'm gonna have a item spawner, and that item spawner will not spawn an item on timer, it will just spawn from a list. And I will get the apple, there it is. So one item spawner would give us an apple, and I'll duplicate it holding Alt and dragging from the x-axis in this case, and the other one will give us some weapon. So now I need to decide when I show this UI to the player, so I'm gonna add a button device, and I'm gonna ask that on the UI, we're gonna show the UI to the player when the button is being interacted with. So if I just do this, and then I would spawn the apple, spawn item, when the pop-up dialog receives, when the player responds choosing the button 1, the first button. And this one, the gun, will be spawning when the pop-up dialog is answered with response number 2. So let's, I'm gonna launch that level and show the result. Okay, so I spared you the time it took to load. So now when I press the button, it's showing me this question, do you want an apple or a gun? And if I choose gun, it spawns the gun there. But I could also choose apple, it would spawn the apple, and it up, and make it spawn on the apple. Okay. So now, how do we have a different UI? Because in the pop-up dialog device, we can choose to have a different widget. So for this, so we're gonna go create our own widget. So right click in the content browser, user interface, widget blueprint. And for this, we need to create the modal dialog variant. I'm gonna call it W underscore apple or gun, for instance. And then in the settings of my pop-up dialog, I'm gonna choose this apple or gun that I just created. But when it's created, it doesn't do anything. So I'm going to have, so we can do a canvas which represents the whole screen. And then we would want to have buttons. So I could use, I don't know, just a regular button. Here there is the text of the button, so I would say apple. And I would make another button called gun. Oops, fun too, but gun in the case. And then we could also have another piece of text, text block here. And this would say, do you want an apple or a gun? And I'm gonna do size to content. So it's not the prettiest UI ever, but it will work for us. I'm gonna compile and save, and I can show you if we do this right now, if I push changes again. Okay, and now it has updated. So if I go here to interact with my UI, it's showing me this new UI I just created, and I see the buttons. But if I click on them, nothing's happening. Why? Well, because the UI doesn't know, like the game, the device doesn't know what the buttons mean. So for this, we're going to have to tell the pop-up dialog device that when we click on this button in the UI, it means that we're giving response 1, basically. So for this, we need to bring the view bindings, which you see in the bottom of the screen. And even if I don't select anything, if I add a widget here, I select the first button. So actually, I'm going to rename my buttons. So here I have my buttons. So I'm going to say this one is button Apple. And this one, I'm going to call it button gun. Could call it anything. I'm going to go to view bindings, and here I'm going to see button Apple, button gun. So first, when I select what I will want to do, I'm going to show you. So I'm going to have to go the other way, where here I want to use a function from our creative device. So a function from the pop-up dialog device. And when the player selects response 1, it's going to go to this, and that's going to be the response. So it's going to collect a response, which would be in this case the response from button 1. A get response button 1. And the field here, we need to say what happens, like how do we know what makes it response 1? Well, it makes it response 1 when we click on the button that we call button Apple. So there's a click event. So what it says now is that when we click on button 1, then response 1 will be the given response to our question in that case. So then I just need to do the same thing with button 2. With a gun. And actually it needs to go the other way and get conversion function, which I would not see otherwise. So when we click on button 2, then that's the response that we send to the device. That's going to be our response. And what does it mean to click on button 2? It's when this button receives a click event. So now I'm going to compile, save, and push changes again. Okay, and now when we go back to our game and we interact, we see again our same custom message, but this time if I press gun, it's gonna work and spawn the gun, or apple, spawn the apple. So I hope this was helpful. Again, it's not very intuitive, which is why I made this video. So you need to add a widget, add a binding, sorry. And then basically the logic is that we're saying when that button, this button, which I called here button Apple, when it's clicked, when the click event happens on this button, we that means that it's response 1, and we send response 1 as the response to the pop-up dialog. So the pop-up dialog knows, okay, the response is response 1, and that happens when we click on the button. Okay, I hope this was clear, and see you later.